What's going on, guys? So a while ago, my friend Ray and I on our podcast were talking about some of our favorite science fiction films and creatures in science fiction films. And Ray brought up the creatures from this movie, which I had never seen before. And he recommended that I watched it before doing that episode. And I absolutely loved this movie. And the film I'm going to be talking about today is Arrival from Denis Villeneuve. Arrival is directed by Denis Villeneuve. Taking place after alien crafts land around the world, an expert linguist is recruited by the military to determine whether they come in peace or are a threat. Our film follows Amy Adams, who's this teacher who's also a linguist, who goes to class one day and she's teaching, and you're learning a little bit from her about different languages and about the history of language, and it's really fascinating. And you cut home and she's having these flashbacks to having a child in her house, and she lost her child to some sort of disease. We're not 100% sure what, but her child got sick. I'm assuming it was cancer from the looks of it. And so she's constantly having flashbacks to seeing this child. And she goes to school the next day, and when she gets there, almost her entire class is gone. She has a couple people show up, their phones start going off, and one of them says, "Hey, turn on the TV." So she turns on the TV, and you see that these huge spacecraft have shown up, and they start talking about it. Well, she goes home, and Forrest Whitaker ends up showing up at her house. And he shows up and he says, "We know you're the best linguist in the world. We want you to go try to translate what these aliens are saying." And so the film is, she ends up agreeing, going to see the aliens, and her and Jeremy Renner work together to try to understand what these beings want. And that is really the movie. It's them getting dressed in these suits, going on board this spacecraft, which they're able to get on board once every certain period of hours, and just learning how to understand what they're saying and why they are acting the way they're acting. And this movie is just incredibly impressive, and I feel like mostly it's because Denis Villeneuve is a director who has such incredible attention to detail. This film really looks at the way all the governments react to this happening, and I feel like it felt so real world, how each one of these governments reacted to these alien creatures coming to our planet. And it was so fascinating to watch, because I felt like this is how people probably would have reacted if aliens actually landed. And then you have the complex breakdown of, like, Amy Adams is trying to learn their language, which these creatures come up and they stand and they look almost like human hands with like tentacles coming out of the bottom. They communicate by shooting these like ink swells up that have these like circular patterns on there. And what she comes to find out later on is that the circular patterns are actually complex sentences that they break down. It takes them several months to figure it out, but they have to at first teach them like basic communication to meet them at a midway point to understand how this language works. And so a lot of the film is you're kind of breaking that down and trying to understand that, while at the same time Amy Adams is constantly having these dreams about her young child. It's really fascinating. The movie takes a really crazy twist in the third act that I didn't see coming. But what's great about this movie is the aliens pose no threat. It's very different than a lot of these other movies. They're not violent, they're not doing anything that's imposing violence, but the violence ends up coming from the people. And I thought that was such an interesting and unique take in this movie, is that our own actions from our governments here and the way people are is what causes the tensions to rise around places. And I thought that was so unique and fascinating to approach it in that direction. This movie does a lot of things that I feel like science fiction films haven't over the years, and it really just impressed me. I thought that it was so well done, it was so well shot, and the performances from Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner are excellent. This movie has great pacing for like a 2-hour film. It just feels like an absolute breeze. Every second I was watching this, it was amazing. I thought the cinematography was breathtaking. I love the design of these pods. They're super simplistic. They look almost like crescent moon shaped, but there's nothing like really complex about the design. It's very simplistic, and I love that when they go into the ship, there's this like glass plane that separates them from the creatures, and there's this like smoke in there, so we think we're seeing the whole creatures. And towards the end of the movie, you get a bigger reveal of what they actually look like completely. And the attention to detail that Villeneuve had with coming up with the idea of these creatures is so incredible. I was really impressed with just how much detail was paid to that specifically, and it was so fantastic and so well done. And this movie just really kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. I've been really impressed with Villeneuve throughout his career. I haven't seen all of his movies, but the ones that I have seen, I've really enjoyed. And Arrival is definitely one that you need to check out if you're a fan of science fiction. I feel like this is a lot more procedural science fiction, less of like the suspense or action part of science fiction. And I love films like this that are really thought-provoking, that, you know, make you put yourself in the shoes of these people and how would you react in this situation. The twist, like I said, at the end of this film is fantastic. It really took me by surprise, and it was a movie that I'm really glad that I watched. Have you seen Arrival? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was absolutely brilliant. I think Villeneuve is an incredible filmmaker, and he's just going to keep getting better as his career goes on. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.